Black billionaire pretends to be in a coma, but when he hears his nurse's confession, beginning, the soft hum of the medbay was the only sound filling the sterile, white chamber. Monitors pulsed quietly, displaying heart rates, oxygen levels, and neurological scans. Every machine whispered the same truth. Marcus Vaylor, the reclusive black billionaire who once commanded the world's most advanced aerospace corporation, was in a deep coma. That was a story being fed to the media, to the board directors clawing for his empire, and even to his estranged family. But in reality, Marcus Vaylor was wide awake. His body lay still, his eyelids unmoving, but his mind raced behind a disguise of perfect paralysis. He had chosen this deception carefully. Weeks earlier, a near-fatal explosion had ripped through one of Vaylor Aerospace's experimental anti-gravity reactors, leaving him injured. While doctors had rushed to save him, Marcus saw an opportunity. If the world thought him helpless, his enemies would reveal themselves: corporate vultures, political rivals, spies from rival tech conglomerates. But what Marcus hadn't anticipated was how isolating the performance would be. Hours stretched into days as he lay perfectly still, listening to the shuffle of footsteps, the faint hum of nanobot injectors, and the whispered conversations of doctors who assumed he was unconscious. He had resigned himself to patience, until she arrived. Her name was Nurse Alara Wynn. She was young, with skin the shade of rich mahogany and a quiet gentleness in her voice that cut through the artificial sterility of the medbay. She had been assigned to monitor Marcus's vitals during the night shift. For the first few days, she said little beyond the expected medical jargon. But on the fourth night, something shifted. "Mr. Vaylor," she whispered softly as she adjusted the intravenous nanodrip. "You probably can't hear me, but it feels wrong to sit here in silence." Marcus nearly betrayed his secret with a twitch of his lips. No one else had spoken to him, as though he were more than a body in a bed. He listened, curious. "You know," Alara continued, pulling up a chair, "I used to think people like you didn't bleed the same way we do. You're so untouchable. Billionaire, genius, founder of half the tech that runs the world. But seeing you like this, vulnerable, it reminds me you're still human." For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt something stir in his chest, a flicker of connection. And then she confessed. Middle. It started as fragments, spoken in the lows of silence. Alara talked about her childhood in the sprawling slums of New Lagos, where hunger was constant and hope was rationed. She described how she clawed her way into nursing school, fueled by nothing but determination and the dream of helping others escape the crushing poverty she had known. But the more nights that passed, the deeper her confessions grew. "My brother," she whispered one night, her hands trembling as she adjusted the machines. "His name was Darius. He died last year, Mr. Vaylor. He was only 17. Do you know why?" She looked at his still face as though she expected an answer. "Because of you." The words hit Marcus like a blow. Alara leaned closer, her voice breaking. "That reactor explosion, the one they said you barely survived? It wasn't the first. They covered up the earlier test failures. One of those failures poisoned my neighborhood with radiation. My brother was caught in the fallout. He wasted away while your company denied responsibility." Marcus's heart pounded, but he forced his breathing to remain steady. "I applied to work here," Alara continued, "because I wanted to see the man behind the empire. I wanted to look at you and decide whether you were a monster or a victim of the machine you built." Tears glimmered in her eyes. "But now here you are, silent, helpless. And sometimes when I watch you lying there, I want to pull the plug myself." She stood there trembling, her hands hovering near the controls. Marcus could practically feel the weight of her anguish pressing into the air. He wanted to scream, to sit up, to tell her she was wrong, or maybe to admit she was right. But he stayed still, listening. Over the next nights, her confessions grew more tangled. She spoke of her rage against the system that had made men like Marcus untouchable. She admitted to sneaking into his medbay not just because it was her job, but because she didn't know whether she wanted him to live or die. Yet, woven into her fury, there were threads of something else: doubt, compassion, even admiration. "You changed the world," she whispered one evening, stroking the edge of his foreline as though afraid of her own thoughts. "Anti-gravity travel, quantum engines, medicine that cures diseases people thought were eternal. If not for you, I wouldn't even have this job. And yet, for all the good you've done, people like my brother were still sacrificed. Was it worth it?" Marcus's mind churned. She had stripped him bare with her words, peeling away the armor of wealth and power until he was nothing but a man confronted by his own consequences. But then, everything changed. The discovery. On the 12th night, alarms blared suddenly. Red lights flared across the medbay, and automated voices declared, "Unauthorized intrusion detected. Corporate espionage protocol activated." Marcus's boredom enemies had finally made their move. A shadowy figure in stealth armor breached the medbay doors, weapon in hand. Their orders were clear. Finish Marcus Vaylor before he could ever awaken. Illyra froze in terror, but her training kicked in. She positioned herself between the assassin and Marcus's bed. "Step aside." The intruder barked, raising a plasma pistol. "No," Illyra said, surprising herself with the steel in her voice. "He's my patient. You'll have to kill me first." The assassin sneered. "So be it." Marcus's body screamed to move, to break his cover, but he couldn't, not without revealing everything too soon. His empire depended on the illusion of his coma. But Illyra didn't flinch. With quick thinking, she slammed her palm against the emergency shield controls. A barrier of hard light energy snapped up around Marcus's bed, just as the assassin fired. The blast ricocheted harmlessly against the shield. Security drones arrived seconds later, swarming the intruder until they were subdued. As silence returned to the medbay, Illyra slumped against the barrier, her chest heaving. She had saved his life. The same woman who once whispered that she wanted him dead. And Marcus realized something profound. Her confession wasn't just rage. It was truth. She represented the voices he had ignored for years, the ones sacrificed in pursuit of progress. He knew then that he could not remain silent any longer. The revelation, that night, when Illyra returned to her chair, Marcus decided to break his ruse. He waited until she leaned close, whispering again as though the events of the attack had shaken loose the walls she had built. "I don't know why I saved you," she murmured, tears streaking her cheeks. "Maybe because if you die like this, you'll never answer for what you've done. Maybe because I needed you to hear me, even if you never wake up." And then in the silence that followed, Marcus spoke. His voice was hoarse, like an echo from the grave. "I heard you, Illyra." Her eyes widened in shock. She stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a tray of instruments. "Why, you're awake?" Marcus slowly opened his eyes, the bright light burning against his pupils. "I've been awake, listening, every word." For a long moment, Illyra stared at him, torn between fury and disbelief. Then her hands balled into fists. You deceived me. You let me spill my soul while you lay there pretending." "I had my reasons," Marcus said, forcing himself upright despite the weakness in his limbs. "There are people who want me dead. I needed them to believe I was helpless." He met her gaze, his eyes heavy with the weight of truth. "But I wasn't prepared for what you told me. About your brother. About the people we failed." Illyra's anger faltered, replaced by raw pain. "You admitted then that your company killed him?" Marcus swallowed hard. "I admit that I was so focused on the stars that I ignored the ground beneath my feet. I built miracles, but I didn't protect the people living in their shadows. That is my failure, and I will not let it stand." For the first time, Illyra saw something in him that was not untouchable arrogance, but remorse and determination. Ending. Within weeks, Marcus Vaylor reemerged before the world. Not as a broken man, but as a leader reborn. News feeds exploded when he appeared at a global summit, flanked not by his usual entourage of executives, but by Illyra Wynn, the nurse who had once wanted him dead. He announced sweeping reforms: a reparations fund for communities harmed by technological accidents, independent oversight for his corporation's experiments, and a medical foundation named in honor of Illyra's brother, Darius. The world was stunned. Critics called it weakness. Allies called it visionary. But for Marcus, it was redemption. One evening, as they walked the quiet gardens of the Vaylor estate, Marcus turned to Illyra. "You saved my life twice. Once from the assassin, and once from myself. I owe you more than I can repay." Illyra shook her head softly. "You don't owe me. Just make it mean something. Make sure no other brother, no other sister, has to watch someone they love die because the powerful didn't care." Marcus nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the first test ship of his new program, dedicated to humanitarian missions instead of profit, rose into the sky. For the first time in years, he felt hope, and though Illyra still carried the scars of her brother's loss, she felt something, too, that perhaps even the untouchable could change.